Hey everyone, thank you so much for stopping by my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kim, and we are currently in the middle of a series about things that maybe you wish somebody had told you or warned you about before coming to live and work in Japan. We're specifically maybe focusing on teaching in Japan because that's what I've been doing for the past, 37 years. And during the time I've been here, I've been able to make observations, experience a lot of things. You know my tagline, I make the mistakes so you don't have to. Today I thought we would jump right into the aspect of work. Working in Japan, specifically, most of what I will be sharing has to do with if you are in the field of education or teaching. However, a lot of this could apply to your job if you are coming here to work for a company, even freelancing, you're just interested in working in Japan. These are some things that perhaps you may want to think about. This isn't to say, no, don't come. I think I would like it if everybody during their lifetime could have at least one experience working either in a different state, a different country, even a different city in some cases. There are so many benefits to helping you grow, helping you to realize what you want in your career, and also just to gain experience and insight into other people, other cultures, other lifestyles. It really opens your eyes, teaches you a lot about yourself, and I think it helps you understand what it is that you want from your job or career. I started this particular installment of this series maybe a couple weeks ago, and one of the things I will say, and I think most teachers will agree to this, there are times in a teacher's life where you are just overwhelmed with work. In this case, it is March. It's the end of the school year in Japan, not for international schools, but mainly for other schools in Japan. It is seriously one of the most busiest times. You're not only putting closure on your previous school year, but at the same time, you're sort of preparing for the next school year. You're dealing with a lot of people leaving and going, new people coming into the workplace, trying to get forms written, report cards, all that other fun stuff. I think it's the same for teachers around the world. The end of the school year is busy. Sometimes you have to concentrate and focus, and then later on make sure you maintain that balance by doing something fun and relaxing. Some people take a vacation, some people just stay at home and relax, which is I think what I'm going to be doing in the next couple of weeks. The school year is almost over. We have graduation next week, so I feel like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel of this school year, and I feel a little bit more relaxed. But I thought of something pretty important that I wanted to put into this particular chapter. So let's get started. Last week I had to go to the university campus that my school is affiliated with, and we went with the whole 6th grade class, but we were meeting at the university. I thought originally that we would probably be going as a group, taking a bus over, but I was incorrect. Instead, I had to make the commute, which is a pretty far commute from where I live, down to the university campus, and it was the first time I think I have ever felt squished and uncomfortable. You've seen a lot of videos or you've heard the gossip about certain times when the trains are packed and you're almost pushed by the attendants, squished into this train where you have very little room to breathe. I was going to say breathe because that's how I felt, but very little room to feel comfortable. It's pretty horrendous. I just sat there thinking of all probably worst case scenarios, keeping my bag close to me, trying not to breathe too heavily into people's armpits because I'm short, and where I fall amongst other people is usually right where people's armpits are. Not fun. It is not one of the perks of being short. And as I was riding the train, I thought about commute and how your commuting time or your distance from where you live to where you go to work to every day, I think does make a big difference. When I was on Jet and I was placed in Tottori, I at that time did not have a car, and Tottori does have a nice public transportation system, buses, trains, smaller trains, not the big. We didn't have anything like Shinkansens, or we didn't have streetcars. It was a pretty good system, but at the same time, things were not as convenient as they are in the bigger cities. Depending on which area you're assigned to, your public transportation system might be the same. There might be a lot of trains to choose from. You might have the option of subway use. You might have private train lines in addition to the regular JR train lines. You might have several different bus lines or subway lines. In Tottori, where I was, we just had the bus and the train. Of course, there's always the taxi, your bicycle, and your own vehicle should you be able to drive your own car. Some places will not allow you to drive your own vehicle to work, so make sure you check on that. I'm going to focus on commutes. I have always been someone that has lived pretty close to my place of work. I think the farthest commute I had when I was working in Los Angeles was a 45-minute commute, unless, of course, there was traffic. And if you are from Los Angeles, you know that there is always traffic on the freeways. Coming to Japan, I didn't have to worry about that. The traffic was not on the expressways or highways, but maybe just on the regular commuter streets. One of the things I don't mind about long commuting distances is that when you're on the train, you can get work done or you can take a short nap. Now, especially with cell phones, people are sitting there scrolling on their phones or their iPad. People sometimes even bring their laptops and work on the train. This is all fine and dandy unless you're on a commuter train where it's standing room only and you're pretty much packed like sardines. For some people, this is just the lifestyle, and because they do it daily, and because maybe they're used to it or they really like their place of employment, it's not that big of a deal. But for me, I am not fond of crowds. I don't like riding in a crowded train. I don't mind if the train is not crowded and I have a seat or if I'm guaranteed a seat. But even now, as someone that qualifies for that priority elderly seat, I don't often get it. Even if I did have it, there are people that are older than me that deserve it more, or people who maybe actually need that seat. And if I am healthy and strong enough to stand, I don't mind standing. When I went to this university event, though, it was so uncomfortably squishy, and it was probably the regular morning commuting crowd. Oops. Sorry, I'm just checking on Bandit. It was probably the regular commuting crowd. Oh, you've got a treat hidden there. And so I couldn't imagine having to do that every day. Could you? Some people can. Some people have no problem riding the trains and being squished. I think I could maybe last if I had to do it every day. If it were just a 5 or a 10-minute train ride where I was maybe only standing for 2 or 3 stops, but I'm all about comfort and safety, and sometimes I don't feel safe being so squished. It just has visions of all these nightmares that could happen if you can't breathe. And even though I could breathe, when the train stopped, I had to make it from my squished place out the door in my loudest Japanese voice of saying, excuse me, I'm exiting the train. The majority of people were nice enough to make an aisleway or to get off the train and then go back on afterwards. But just supposing they aren't, just supposing they're not budging, I only have a limited time to get from my squished location out the exit of the door. Not my idea of fun. Another thing too, and I know this is a rather morbid thought, but it comes from a place of experience. As you know, the anniversary of the March 11th earthquake has just passed, 2 days ago. It's March 13th today, and I was in Shizuoka at the time when that earthquake happened. We felt it very strongly. We watched the news reports and we heard of what was happening. All I could think about was Sinbad, because Sinbad was in the apartment. I had no idea what type of damage could have happened to my apartment while I was gone. Did things fall? Was he okay? Was he freaked out? Was my apartment safe enough? I knew it was still standing, but when you leave your place, you don't often think, oh, okay, I hope this doesn't fall. I hope this doesn't fall. It's something I'm very conscious of now. When I leave, I have to make sure that things are safe so that if in case there is an earthquake, that I don't have to worry about something falling on Bandit while I'm away. During that time of the March 11th earthquake, all I kept thinking about is how I wanted to go back and make sure that he was okay. But of course I had school duties. I had to stay at school and to make sure that all our students had safe rides home or safe ways home, and the ones that didn't might have to stay at school, in the gym with other teachers. It was a pretty intense moment. And I thought one of the things that was difficult were that some of the parents of the students were not able to get to the school to pick up their child because the train lines had stopped and they lived further away from school. So in the event of an emergency, you might not be able to get back home if train lines stopped. This also pertains to the weather. When weather is really bad, like typhoons or snowstorms, the transportation system might stop or might be ended early. And if you have no way of getting home, but you've got pets at home or an elderly parent, or right, if you're not feeling well and you just want to get home, there's so many different things. And for me, having to worry about how I'm going to get home, I didn't want to have that worry. So living close enough to school where I would be able to walk home if necessary was, or became, I guess, an important factor for any job that I took. I live very close to my current workplace. Same when I lived in Gunma Prefecture. I lived very close to my workplace. I lived far enough away that I felt I had my privacy, but I also knew it was close enough to be able to walk or get to my place in a hurry if I needed to. For me, that peace of mind was everything, and I think it's something for you to consider as well. Sure, it might be fun to live in the city, or it might be fun to live more in the countryside if your workplace is in the city. There's nothing wrong with commuting to work or having to rely on transportation to get you to and from the workplace, but I guess you have to decide for yourself how much time are you willing to spend on the commute. I don't mind commuting to work, no matter how long the distance is, but when I'm done with a hard working day, I want to get home as quickly as possible. Maybe before you accept a position or a job, see what your time of commute is. Before you even start work, maybe even see what your commute is going to look like. If you're someone that also doesn't particularly like crowded trains and you feel a little bit claustrophobic, or if time for you is really important, maybe you will want to request to live someplace really close so that you don't have to make that long commute. For others of you, many companies do pay for your travel expense fee. So maybe for you, living further out means getting a little bit more travel expense money. I don't know. I think your commute also plays a big factor in how you feel in the morning. If you've just been smushed on a train and you're not feeling well, or it's super hot that day and you're just sweating and smelling everybody's body odor or whatever, and you have to get to work and all of a sudden have 5 classes that day, you might not feel in the most peppiest of moods, and it could affect your mood at work. Now let's get to the part that I recorded before. Once again, I don't think any of these are deal breakers or things that you can actually predict, but I think if you have a little bit of awareness about what could possibly happen, it might make it a little bit easier for you to deal with any negative things that might affect your work life. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, hopefully you've done your research probably before you interviewed or applied for the job, but especially if you have decided to take the job, I hope you've done all your research and made sure your contract, your vacation days, your pay, all of that meets to what you are hoping for. Sometimes Japanese contracts can be very vague. Some schools may not even tell you the exact salary. But I guess that might be the same in a lot of big companies as well. They may give you an estimate or say, well, your salary will be around this amount. And they give you an amount. Usually you think about it and decide whether or not that amount is right for you. I don't know whether or not you can do a lot of negotiating. Programs such as the JET program or different language school programs usually don't negotiate your salary terms. It's usually a base price which you accept or decline. You may need to do your research and ask whether your contract includes bonuses or certain types of allowances such as transportation allowances, housing allowances. Also, what things will be taken out of your salary, such as your health insurance or different taxes. A lot of companies and schools will probably handle taking out things like your resident taxes and your health insurance payments, your pension payments. But if your school or company doesn't, you need to look into that, because then that means you'll have to pay it yourself, or you'll have to make arrangements with those like City Hall or whatever to take it out automatically out of your bank account so you can make the payments and be on time with them. You may also need to factor in things such as car taxes and automobile or driving insurances if you plan to get an automobile or a motorbike. If you have a dependent coming with you, you will need to check in that. And like I said, not everything is cut and dry and nicely put on a little piece of paper. Sometimes you have to ask. Most places have salary charts, but once again, they're not often readily available. You may need to ask for it, or you may need to schedule a meeting to see exactly where you fall on the chart. Different schools, different companies have different salary scales. So one example, one of the schools that I worked at, they calculated your salary based on all the jobs that you've worked after your highest educational credential or diploma. So if you were someone that got your master's degree, from the date of the time you got your master's degree up until your current situation, all the jobs that you did during that time will equate as job experience. I was told to put down every single job that I had. They included things like when I taught aerobics in the U.S., because I did that after I got my master's degree. They also include if you worked at a fast food chain for a part-time job. Anything that was job related, you put it down on this form, this document, and from there your salary was calculated. Obviously, sometimes it doesn't seem fair, or it doesn't seem, I don't know, to me, it's just a strange way to calculate your salary. So, for example, a teacher that has gotten a master's degree and has been, their undergraduate was in education, and their whole career up until when they got their master's degree has been in education. So they've got tons of educational experience. But their salary will be calculated from after they got their master's degree. So even though that job experience may count or may factor into where their current position is, it might be less than someone who is, say, maybe in their 40s or 50s that have all this job experience that wasn't in education. So let's say you were a retail salesperson, or your work experience after your highest degree, which maybe your highest degree was a bachelor's degree or just getting your college degree, and maybe from there you worked in retail sales, or maybe you worked in a department store, and then you decided you wanted to make a change in career and you decide to get into teaching. You might only have 1 year of teaching experience under your belt, or that's the only experience you have in your classroom, but you could essentially be making more money than this person that got their master's in education and had all that teaching experience. But because of the way the salary chart works, it might not. I don't know. It just seems strange to me. That's not saying that's every situation. This was just one particular school that I worked at. They do pay attention to seniority. So if you are older, like myself, you probably have more years of work experience than someone fresh out of university. So the chart will kind of do the figuring out, and you may be starting at the school or a company at the same time as this new graduate, yet your salary might be more because of your age. So my suggestion is do your research before you commit to anything. You can go on a gut feeling, such as I did, because when I applied for my current position now, I was going on a gut feeling. I never got shown or told any exact salary. What was told to me was what a colleague that was a lot younger than I, what he was making based on what his experience, work experience, educational experience, and all that. He was giving me his salary number. It sounded pretty good, so I figured I would probably be making around that amount. And I wasn't anywhere close to what I thought was going to be my salary. But at the same time, I was happy with what was offered me. I also found out, too, that when I was working full-time, my monthly payments were considerably comfortable. But when I became tenured and had a permanent contract, I expected to have my same monthly salary, but sometimes things don't calculate that way. Sometimes your bonus payment is sort of taken out of your monthly payment, so maybe your monthly payment is less, but when you get your bonus, it makes up for it. Also, too, depending on the timing of your contract or when you start and all of that, it plays a factor into what your monthly payment will be. So once I had gotten my tenured position, I was kind of surprised because my monthly salary was considerably less. And it shocked me, and I kept thinking, oh my God, did I make the right decision? But my colleague told me the first bonus you get won't be that great. It'll be just a nice little bonus, but nothing to feel extremely secure about. The longer you work, then the more you'll see the benefits. And that was true because it does take a little time to maybe build up your salary scale rate. So as somebody, if you're just starting out here and coming, it's really, really hard to know exactly what you're making. And sometimes you just have to take that leap of faith. So if you're coming on Jet, you'll know exactly what your salary is, but you just won't know after all the little payments and stuff are taken out. Some places also don't give you a written word-for-word contract. Other places, they do. And if you're working, say, at an immersion school, everything is pretty well laid out. But if you're working at a Japanese school, it might be a little bit vague, or you might see certain things on your contract that you read about, but when you come to Japan, you realize, wait, I don't know how that works. One example is I'm not sure what the name in Japanese is, but for females that are having their time of the month, and if you're maybe one of those people that gets extreme cramps, or you're in discomfort, or you just feel bloated and you don't feel like you can get through the day, they do have certain days that you can take off under that heading. However, I've never seen anybody take it or ask for it. So even though you'll read that, and I know that one's in the Jet contract, because I remember thinking, oh, how nice, but no one ever took it. So you'll have to look into that if you're someone that maybe might need to use those days. There's also a lot of different, I don't know what to call it, different days that you can take off without getting your personal paid leave days taken away from it. But it depends on different prefectures, different cities, different schools. Some people get time off or special days if you've got children, because if your child is absent from school and you have no one to take care of your child during that time and you have to take off work, there's certain days, or there's a certain holiday that you can use so that you don't have to use your paid leave holidays. Paid leave depends on every prefecture, how they enforce it. In Jet, you'll be given a certain amount of days that are paid leave, which is hard because sometimes that is actually your sick days. Now, a paid leave by, I guess Western standards are by the way we would define it, are days that you use for your personal or mental well-being. You take the time off, no questions asked, and it isn't subtracted from your pay. It's one of your holidays, your paid leave holidays. But let's say you're not feeling well. Let's say you have maybe a cold, or your allergies are really acting up, or you're dizzy, or you have a really bad stomach ache. Ordinarily, you would think, oh, can I take it out of my sick leave, or can I take a sick leave day for that? But certain companies and certain schools don't have sick day pay unless you get it verified or confirmed by a doctor. And usually this involves going to a doctor, getting the certificate, and proving that you were absent. When I had the mumps, yes, I had the mumps in my 40s, believe it or not. When I had the mumps, that was not taken out of my sick days. I had to use my paid leave days for the mumps. I had to use my paid leave days for when I had an eye situation. For those of you that remember on Periscope, I had something fly in my eye. I went like this and it scratched up my surface of my eye and my eyes were swollen. Both eyes actually were swollen and I couldn't really do anything for a week. Even though maybe we would consider that sick days or medical leave, it wasn't. I had to take it out of my personal paid leave. And for those of you that are thinking about vacations or going home for the summer or heading somewhere over the winter holidays, but you need to be careful because even though there are no students and no classes, and that's technically called like, oh, your winter break or your summer break, many of you may still be working according to your contract. So even if you have no classes to do, you would have to report to work on whatever you need to do, study Japanese, write documents, whatever, lesson plans for the next term. But if you're going to take those days off and go traveling, it comes out of your paid leave. Now, if you combine it with Japanese national holidays, you can have a longer time period, but now you can maybe understand why certain travel times are super busy in Japan. The string of holidays known as Golden Week are holidays for you. You don't have to take any paid leave or you don't have to ask for that time off. However, if that Golden Week falls if the days are arranged where maybe this day and this day is a holiday, but this is a work day and then the next day is a holiday, you have to take that day out of your paid leave if you want it to have that string of holidays. Same with Obon, which is a few days, it's not a week, but a few days in August that Japanese companies give their employees usually off for those days to go visit family or whatever. You can use that time as part of your vacation time. But once again, these are all expensive times to travel. If you're linking it up with your paid leave holidays, I know that you want to get the best for your money, so sometimes it takes a little bit of, balancing or juggling. Same with the New Year's. New Year holidays usually run from December 29th or 28th until January 3rd. So if you're planning to go home for Christmas or a week earlier, that might mean 5 days of your paid leave. Now, some places are a little bit more understanding and will give you that time off where you won't have to take your paid leave. But other schools and other companies will say, no, it must come out of your paid leave. So what that means is a lot of people have to save up their paid leave. And all of a sudden that means, oh my gosh, I'm not feeling that well, but I can't take it off, otherwise I won't have enough to go on my holiday during winter. Or, oh no, my parents or my friends are visiting during this week. I really want to spend some time with them, but I don't have any days to take off, right? There's all kinds of situations. You'll have to make those decisions for yourself, but just remember that there are some places that may be stricter and may not allow you to take the time you were expecting to go home or go traveling. And some of you will have so much time and your school will give you that time. Or you may ask, could I have these days off because my parents are in town and I'd like to go traveling with them? And they may say, of course, of course. It all depends on your situation. Also, too, just be aware that these kind of job holidays or not holidays, or how you use your holidays, can play an impact in your relationships at the office. For example, as you've probably heard, most schools don't have substitute systems or substitute teachers that you can just call in to take your class. Usually what happens is you have to change your classes around so that teachers, you can teach during a certain teacher's time and they'll teach during your time. That takes a lot of finagling sometimes. Or if you don't do that, your school may assign other teachers to cover your spots. That can be met sometimes with a little bit of unhappiness, shall we say, because let's say it's a holiday like Golden Week and you are thinking about going to Thailand or going to someplace tropical to relax. And well, even if it's just local, even if you're just going to go to Okinawa, or maybe you want to go to Hokkaido. But oh no, the way Golden Week holidays falls this year, or I get April 29th is off, and then I have to come in the 30th and the May 1st and May 2nd, and I don't get the next holiday till May 3rd. Do you see what I'm saying? And you still want to go, you decide, oh, okay, I want to take off, even though maybe your supervisor said, oh, it's not really favored upon, but it's your decision and your use of holidays, so go ahead. Well, think about the people that have to cover your classes if they weren't expecting to cover their classes. What if they wanted to go to Hawaii also? Or what if they wanted to take a family trip, but because of the work situation, maybe they're not able to? It's, once again, kind of depends on your personality. Personally, because maybe the way we value our holidays in certain countries and how we expect that our holiday time is our holiday time, you are certainly entitled to take it as you believe you should. But just know that there's no guarantee as to how it's going to be a reflection of you at the workplace or how it's going to be accepted by other teachers. And if you are okay with whatever may happen, then yeah, do what you need to do. I'm just thinking of a situation where people that have went on trips and then they bring back souvenirs, which is called omiyage in Japanese. They come back with souvenirs and put their souvenirs on all the teachers' desks. You have some teachers that might be a little ticked off at you because you got to do something that they couldn't do. Well, actually, you know what? That they could have done, but they felt like their responsibility or they needed to stay at the workplace. It's so hard. It's so hard to understand group dynamics. I say read your school and figure out how you feel and what you need to do and just make your decision from there. Anything that you don't understand and you need clarity, especially things like your hours, your salary, your vacation time, your responsibilities, all that, and check into that. Maybe you can't do that until after you've accepted the job, but yeah, check into it as best as you could. Let's say you are working here, you've come and you expected to be teaching or doing a lot of things, maybe with clubs, maybe in your interview, or maybe when you met everybody at orientation, you expressed a desire to start doing martial arts, or you wanted to learn calligraphy, and the people say, oh yeah, of course, yeah, that's great, of course you can do this. And then your school starts, and all of a sudden everything is, oh no, that's not possible. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't do that. Or, oh, we're too busy, we can't let you do this. Or whatever the excuse is. That can easily happen. And it's up to you if you bring it up or how far you want to push things, because I think, especially those of you that are assigned to multiple schools, you might be at one school where they really involve you and they go over the lessons with you. They tell you what they'd like you to prepare. When it's class time and you're in the lesson, you really feel like you're a part of the class. You've been warmly accepted. You have a chance to interact with the students. Then, on the other hand, you might be somewhere where you're standing in front of the class, not being utilized, not even being asked to answer questions or demonstrate. Then the teacher may say, can you read this passage? Can you please ask each student this question? Can you please look and check their assignments? And in your head you're thinking, this is boring. This is not what I signed up to do. I'm so underutilized. I felt that when I was on JET, because in my head I thought, I have teaching experience. I have 8 years of teaching experience under my belt. I know how to read a classroom. I know how to come up with a game or an idea like this. I know how to facilitate conversation. Why am I just being asked to read something out of a textbook and then just listen to everybody's pronunciation and try my best to correct it? That, to me, that wasn't what I felt was using me to the best of my ability. You'll often feel that. Sometimes you'll feel underutilized. Sometimes you'll feel overutilized. Sometimes you'll feel that teachers are working you while they sit in the back and grade papers, or they sit in the back and maybe touch a few students that are not paying attention or being disruptive. But in the meantime, you're up there doing everything. I can't predict what kind of situation you'll be in. If you find yourself in a situation where it just wasn't what you're comfortable in, find a teacher that you can trust or discuss it. If you don't feel comfortable having so much responsibility or having to plan things when you don't really know the level or the ability level of your students, if you are supposed to talk about a situation and you don't really know about it, you can just tell your teacher, is it okay, can I change and talk about this instead? We get that a lot with cultural things because I'm way more familiar with certain holidays that we celebrate in the US, but I don't really know a lot of the holidays that they celebrate in Australia. If you're being asked to teach a class introducing culture, well, it's going to be difficult for me to speak about Australian or British culture because I'm not as familiar with those cultures as somebody that is from Australia and Britain, and vice versa. So communication, I guess, is pretty much key to handling whatever job situation, stress or pressures or demands that are making you feel uncomfortable. I'm sure all of that you've heard, so maybe that's not stuff that nobody told you. I'm pretty sure that that has been discussed at your orientation and with many of your former jets or people that are currently teaching English.